Hey there, welcome back to another episode with your girls, Live Bold and Boss Up podcast. We are bringing you the Synapse Summit Series for 2025, and we got to host it at Raymond James Stadium, which was super cool. Had really great vibes there. And this episode, we're sharing with you the conversation with Ken Hall. He's the partner over at DeepWork Capital. They're in Orlando, Florida. And DeepWork Capital is really cool because they invest in smaller startup companies that are around technology and AI. So, right in our wheelhouse. And we love chatting with them about early stage funders, what do investors want to hear for pitching, all the things, all the sweet spots. So if you're a small business owner and you need investors,
Yeah.
this is the episode to listen to.
Yeah. He gives a lot of good advice and insight on if you're looking for investors or if you're looking, to start up a new company and just what that whole process looks like. Ken is great at explaining it. And, I learned a lot on this episode. Thank you so much, Ken, for being on the Live Bold and Boss Up podcast today. We are live at Synapse Summit at Raymond James Stadium. And Ken, you are with DeepWork Capital in
Yes.
Orlando. Tell us a little bit about what DeepWork is.
Yeah. So DeepWork is a early stage venture capital firm founded in 2015, based in Orlando. We do seed and Series A stage investing into both emerging technology companies and life science companies as well. So we tend to invest into very tech forward emerging technology companies. Our firm also manages the Florida Opportunity Fund for the state of Florida, which is effectively the strategic venture capital funds dedicated to Florida companies through the state of Florida.
Oh, wow. So you only work in the state of Florida, companies here?
No, within the state funds, solely focused on Florida. Within Deep Work, primarily in Florida, but we focus on underserved markets throughout the country. So we do not tend to chase deals into California, New York, Boston, but we'll look into the Southeast, Texas, the Midwest, into these markets that we think there's great innovation, but have historically been left out of the venture capital markets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. What criteria do you look for whenever you are evaluating these early stage startups?
Several. Look, they need to be solving a real problem and chasing a big enough market to where if they're successful, it can return significant capital to us and to our LPs. So we look for large markets solving unmet, critical problems. Obviously, at the earliest stages, it tends to come down to a lot of the team. And maybe we can hit on that in a little bit, but spending a lot of time on what makes the team special, unique, compelling. But yeah, we want to see companies that are able to generate revenue, solve critical problems, grow really fast with a very resilient and tenacious and qualified team.
Okay. And I know I heard you talking earlier. It's not like brand new company with just an idea. They actually have to have a product or something already in production.
We're all the venture nomenclature has gotten a little messed up, but we are seed stage investors. We're not pre-seed, we're not idea stage, we're not angel investors. We are institutional seed investors where at that point the companies are usually generating revenue. If they're a deep tech company, maybe they've attracted non-dilutive capital and in it through a grant or some other program. The companies are they have a management team that's built out. They're well beyond the idea stage, right? We're investing in companies that are at or approaching product market fit, and we're putting gasoline on the fire, typically investing kind of $1 to $5 million at those stages of the companies.
Okay. And what do you do for these companies other than giving them money? What else do you do to support them like after that fact?
Yeah. Permission to use a sports analogy?
Of course.
Okay. Are you a basketball fan?
I mean, more football.
Okay. Well, in basketball, there's like the starting five, and then there's a six man that comes off the bench. And that's how I view the role of a good venture capitalist is you're not on the starting five, right? You aren't the management, you're not the founders of the company. So don't don't credit yourself as being, that integral to the company. But different teams need different roles to be filled from the six man that comes off the bench, right? So some teams need somebody to come in and score, some need someone to play defense, somebody needs to just come in and rebound, right? So with the different teams that I'm involved in as an investor, I want to be able to jump in and help those companies with what they can be. So we have to be almost a Swiss Army knife. And if we can't provide that value, if we can't solve that problem ourselves, we have to have the network and the relationships to bring those people in to help support the company. So it could just be general governance, but it could also be facilitating partnerships, helping them with their future capital raises, their IP strategies. You could just run down the gamut of things that startups deal with. And the role of a good VC is to help solve those problems and be proactive with providing value.
Okay. And that was a great analogy, by the way. It really helped
Thank
me
you.
picture it. Even though I'm not a big basketball fan, I could definitely see how that, relates to it. What emerging trends are you seeing in the companies that are coming to you for investments and that excite you the most?
That are coming to us for investments, the common thing would be every company saying they're an AI company. Every single deck that we see now says that they're an AI company. It's kind of it's entertaining that the same companies that we saw 2 years ago that weren't AI companies are now magically AI companies. But in all seriousness, I mean, AI is the trend that, everybody's at the top of everyone's mind, and it is unbelievably, significant opportunity in the market. I think for the most part, like we're looking to invest, and what gets us excited is companies that are using AI not to go directly head on against the companies, the hyperscalers or the unicorn stage companies in Silicon Valley with, hundreds of millions of dollars, or if not billions of dollars of cash as a war chest to go in this market, but companies that are taking those innovations, bringing them internally, being better, smarter, faster, cheaper than they could have been otherwise, right? So we have companies that, even 3, 4, 5 years ago, we thought it was going to cost, $10 million to do something. But now with AI, with the advancements, they're able to do it for 500,000 instead of 10 million, right? So it's created a lot of efficiencies that helps our dollars go further as investors and help the companies grow faster.
Mm-hmm. No, that's kind of what we're seeing with a lot of our clients that are hiring, and all of a sudden now they're all AI specialists, and a lot of the candidates that we've talked to, they're all AI something.
Yes,
So,
yes.
do you think it's just like a buzzword at this point, or do you think it's like?
It's hard to say it's a buzzword. I mean, there's real companies that have built, it's hard to invest in it because the landscape's changing fast and companies are growing so fast, right? There's companies that have gone from 0 to 100 million of ARR in, 18 months now. And that used to take, 5 to 10 years, if that, probably longer. And so the timeline seems to be compressed. There's real customer demand, but I don't know. I guess where I wouldn't write out entirely of being a buzzword, but I would say what we need to see is real ROI generated, right? So customers and enterprise clients have proven that they will spend the money. Now they have to see the value being returned from these implementations.
Okay, that makes sense. What are the implications of AI in Florida?
I mean, I think it's kind of along the lines of what I was just saying of this better, smarter, faster, cheaper throughout the state. And I think a lot of the state of Florida's innovation ecosystem is really far ahead in things like defense tech, right? And that again, that used to require a lot of internal AI development, internal proprietary tools that the rest of, that would have taken a lot of capital in order to get there. And so, when you think of defense tech, when you think of a lot of the optics or photonics companies, or even cyber, the innovations from AI from other, well-established hyperscalers or unicorn companies is going to help those companies become more successful. So largely I see the state and a lot of the venture-backed companies in the state being able to utilize those technologies and probably grow faster and be more successful than they would have been 5 to 10 years before, because I don't think that the kind of capital to support those companies exists within the state.
Right. Okay. Can you share a success story of one of your founders that you've invested in, or one of your companies that you've seen kind of from the start to where they are now?
Yeah, I mean the a beginner's luck, but I mean the biggest success that we've had was the first investment that we made actually in the history of our firm, which was seed stage fintech company out of Orlando called Fat Merchant, which then grew up to be Stacks Payments, which is Florida's first and only female founded $1 billion company. And so we DeepWork led the seed round investment of that company, was on the board, actively involved, kind of helped introduce some of the co-founders together, and then help, support the company through multiple stages of growth. I think the lesson learned was, it's in payments, right? Massive market, growing, a huge sucking sound in the market, massive tailwinds. The digitization of, the payment industry was becoming, ubiquitous at the time, right? So being able to ride that wave with a founding team that like uniquely understood the problem, had a family background in the space, was like maniacally focused on this and resilient at the earliest stages, continued to grow the business year after year like clockwork, and then eventually became, over $100 million of ARR, valued at over $1 billion. And those founders have since left to start another company. We're in the seed stage for that as well. And so I think that's one of the exciting things about Florida as well. You're starting to see these repeat successful entrepreneurs come back to the table for their second bite at the apple and have more experience, kind of lessons learned to be able to do it bigger and better the second time.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy that was your first one.
Yeah.
You're probably like, this is easy. Right?
It still took 6 years to get there, but yeah, these are going to be long journeys. Fund two, we've already had an IPO, an acquisition out of that fund as well. And then we just raised fund three 2 years ago. So jury's still out on a lot of those investments.
Yeah. Well, congrats on that. What are the most common mistakes that early stage founders make when pitching to investors?
I'll give you two. One is not painting a big enough kind of picture of the market and dynamics and where it's headed. The thing that I really like to hear is the why now, right? So there's a lot of, as investors, our firm, we see about 3,000 deals a year. And so there's a lot of ideas that sound, or at least rhyme, very similarly. So being able to paint and I guess tell the story of like why this is a unique time to invest in this opportunity, right? I might have seen something similar 2, 3 years ago, but maybe there's regulatory changes or demographic shifts or now enabling technologies like AI that will make this business be more successful today. So the timing, I think, is often overlooked by entrepreneurs. The other thing I'd say is, especially we think in the Southeast, unless you have a repeat founder, like I was just mentioning, founders don't sell themselves enough. And, not everybody's going to be a repeat founder with, history of raising hundreds of millions of dollars, but everybody has something unique that they can sell themselves on as a jockey. And if we're looking to make investments and we believe in the space, we have to believe that this is the right team. And we have to build a thesis internally and say, we want to bet on this person because XYZ. And so that can really just be, some unique experience you had as an entrepreneur in the space. It can be repeat success. It can be deep industry relationships, but you have to have something to hang your hat on as an entrepreneur and sell yourself. And I do think a lot of founders overlook that aspect and do not sell themselves well enough.
Mm-hmm. And then what is one piece of advice that you would give someone who is considering a career in venture capital?
Well, look, I'll speak from, someone who's, I guess, younger in their career, who's in venture is, I think we live in this era now of like instant gratification and even, going through, going through school and academia, it's, you take a test, you get a result, and you get instant measurement. You post something on social media, you get likes. And we live in this era of, you know, constant feedback and instant gratification. And in venture, it's 5 to 10 years until you know that you're right. And you might have even been wrong on the thesis, but you might have been right in kind of the outcome, right? So we have to, I think the biggest piece of advice is like trying to develop that patience and focusing a lot more on process and, your thinking and your kind of your analytical framework on a deal rather than the outcomes and the process, and just falling in love with the process and the learning of it, because we get to see a lot of great stuff, but whether you are right or wrong on it, you won't know for 3, 4, 5, 10 years,
Wow.
which is in, especially in the era that we're in now and how we're being raised and how our brains are being developed. It's almost at conflict with one another.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's so true. I can't imagine like a sales cycle being that long
yeah,
where it's like
yes.
you kind of lose maybe focus after a while. At least I would.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I think that's why a lot of people tend to gravitate towards these. I think one of the bad things in venture is people have fallen to these like signal things like, oh, I raised $100 million. It's like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter until you actually land the
So,
plane, right? So there are these like interim points of feedback that I guess are good, but are ultimately meaningless in the scope of we need
yeah.
to exit the companies that we invest in. We need to create economic value for the founders, for the investors, for RLPs, for all the stakeholders. And until that plane lands, you don't really know if it was a success or not.
Right.
So,
I guess they're just the checkpoints. Like
yes.
keep following this path and you
Yeah.
should get there.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ken. It was great having you on. Ken from DeepWork.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.